Hello, welcome, hola, how are you doing? Let's talk about the month of June. We're almost to the halfway point of July, but I've realized I have yet to film the June wrap up. How did June go? In terms of numbers, it was probably one of the worst months I've had since I started reading, but there were several factors that contributed to that. For a year and a half, I was without work. I did not have any fights, I did not have any competition to look forward to, and I dealt with a lot of that anxiety by reading. I fought in May, I won my fight. So much anxiety, so much weight off my shoulders. Life was really good. No anxiety, no nervousness. I was just vibing. And what I was reading was really good. One of them was absolutely astounding, one of my favorite books of all time, but it was a very dense book. And the other book I read, because I only read two books in June, was also really good, but I just wasn't feeling it. And I was pushing through it, and it was a struggle. So that book wasn't the book of the month. The book of the month for June was East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I've heard many people say, wasn't sure if you could see it on the screen. I've heard many people say that East of Eden is the great American novel. And I don't know about that. I have not read too much classics. But East of Eden was an absolute masterpiece. It was several generations, several decades of a family story, two families actually, and how their timelines and their stories cross over several decades. There's lots of biblical allusions. There's great betrayals. There's familial violence. Lots of tragedy. Lots and lots of tragedy. Amazing descriptions of the part of California the book takes place in. Great villain. One of the best, most compelling, intriguing, brutal, disturbing villains I've ever encountered in literature, and I'm a Stephen King fan. So that is saying something. East of Eden is very much a book that gave me like this sort of vibe. I feel like John Steinbeck wanted to write a philosophical text and wrote a novel to just kind of pigeonhole those philosophical ideas to the reader. East of Eden is split into 5 parts, and every part starts off with some of the most thought-provoking passages I've ever read in all of literature. John Steinbeck, he could have been a philosopher. He could have written, world-changing, earth-shattering nonfiction essays. And East of Eden, I'm not going to lie, it was a bit dense at times. It dragged a lot. There were several plot points, several stories within the story, because oftentimes this book read like a collection of short stories that didn't really pertain to the plot. And John Steinbeck definitely was getting a little lost in the weeds of this story. But upon completion, I did not mind all the detours. This is very much not a plot-centered book. It's a character-centered book. It's about families and their interactions and their dialogue and people moving past their trauma. And there's not a lot of plot, and a lot of things that you think are being foreshadowed, they don't happen. It was a very hard book to predict. Me and my friends, we started a book club last year. And as we were reading East of Eden, we're in the group chat, we're in the Discord, and we're like, on chapter 30, I have no idea what's happening. Chapter 40, no idea what's happening. Chapter 50, three more chapters, 10 more pages, no idea what's happening, and then it ends. Timshel. It was amazing. If you read the book, Timshel, it's a Hebrew word, very important to the plot. The last few passages brought tears to my eyes. I cried 3 times during East of Eden, so it's a tearjerker, but it's not too mopey. It was an absolutely amazing book. It's very much greater than the sum of its parts. I've heard people say that East of Eden is a work of literary alchemy, and I think that is true. Because if you explain the plot of East of Eden, if you try to pitch it to somebody, it's not going to sound as amazing as it actually is. I can't wait to talk about this book at length when I do, a review video just talking about East of Eden, the philosophical ideas I was focusing on and dwelling on, and how this book influenced how I viewed life, family, sin, religion, faith, society. It's one of those books that will change your mind about a lot of things. Safe to say, East of Eden is my book of the month. But the other book I read, The Face in the Frost by John Belair, it was very interesting, very whimsical, very fun. The plot was a little linear, like it was just the 2 wizard protagonists, they're together, they're on this journey. They encounter something creepy, they survive it, they move on to another place, they encounter something creepy, they survive it. there wasn't a lot happening in terms of plot. But the whimsy of this book, it was so whimsical, it was so playful. I loved the prose. It was very descriptive, perhaps overly descriptive. And the depictions of magic and the magic that was done in this book was so interesting and compelling and immersive. And I'm on this journey with these two wizards, and they're going across this mythical island that's split into a northern and southern kingdom, and we're going across this island nation. And they're encountering bad guys and creepy things. And I guess the author made, his entire career was mostly centered on horror books for YA, for young adults. And this book reads like that. There were a lot of creepy scenes. A lot of times I could feel my heart rate increasing, my breath growing more shallow. This book was eerie and creepy and unsettling at times, but whimsical and fun. I've heard a lot of people talk about how amazing this book is, and it is amazing, but I just wasn't in the mood for it. I think it's less than 180 pages, and I was reading it. I swear it took me longer to read than East of Eden, and East of Eden is 6 times longer, I think. But upon completing The Face in the Frost, I can understand why so many people consider it an underrated hidden gem in fantasy, especially I think this book came out around the same decade as Lord of the Rings. So it's been around for a long time. And there are some hardcore fans of The Face in the Frost. But not a lot happened in terms of plot. The climax was super, super underwhelming. And I don't care if a book is slow or fast. I don't care if the plot drags as long as there's a payoff in the end. As long as, when I look back on the read, the journey seemed worth it. And though I enjoyed my time with The Face in the Frost, I enjoyed the whimsy, I loved the writing, I loved the characters, I loved the funny dialogue and the cool depictions of magic, the climax is very much a letdown, and I'm not sure if the ending was worth it. But I think as more time passes, I'll be able to better understand exactly how I feel about this book. But I was definitely not feeling it. It was very much not an East of Eden. But both of these books were a great struggle for me. I had planned on reading a lot of manga in June, but Manga Dex is dealing with some legal issues, and that's the website where I read all my manga on. And they kept saying, it'll be resolved in a few days, so I kept pushing it back. And as of right now, Manga Dex is still, a lot of the manga on their website isn't there anymore. So if you have any recommendations for websites to read manga on, please leave them in the comments below, because I'm looking for a new website. Because so many of the manga I'm interested in reading, they're not even available officially in English. And that's a shame. That's a damn shame, because I have a lot of manga on the agenda. The high point of June when it came to my reading life was I was on Chatting of Nuts with Jimmy from the Fantasy Network, and we had a good time. We talked for about 2.5 hours. Great discussions. He bought 3 books we plan to read along. We will be reading Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky either at the end of July or at the beginning of August, and I am super pumped for that. The reading plans for July aren't really set in stone. I know I'm reading at least 2 Dungeon Crawler Carl books, because I just want to enjoy what I'm reading in July and build up some momentum for the end of the year. I know I'm starting, and perhaps even finishing Watership Down by Richard Adams. That's the new book club pick, and it just made me realize we are not picking any easy reads in my book club. And my book club, though I've enjoyed it so much, it very much has been destroying my TBR schedule for 2025, because we're reading some dense books. We read Lonesome Dove. We read East of Eden, Neuromancer, The Raven Tower. The easiest book we've read is The Shining. And that's Stephen King. It's not difficult, but still, even The Shining, it's not a small book. It's not a book that doesn't have emotional weight. It's not a book that doesn't make you think. We've had no easy reads in the book club. And we are reading Watership Down, then The Exorcist. Yeah, it's messing with the TBR schedule. But I'm not complaining, because we're having great discussions and we're enjoying it. So tell me what you guys read in the month of June. What were your favorite reads? What do you plan on reading in the month of July? And how's the second half of 2025 looking for you guys? Have you been happy with what you have been reading? Have you been enjoying the literary journeys you've been embarking on? Because I have. It's been a great year. I'm just vibing, chilling. I'm definitely not freaking out. and I'm super excited for July, and I'm excited for the second half of 2025. So this is my short wrap up, and I'll talk to you guys next time.